and welcome to my channel. It only took them 7 episodes, but the Are You Next editors finally stepped up their game and made this episode enjoyable to watch. We finally got to see an entire round on one episode. Well, technically it was half of a round, but we got to see all of the performances and not 2 rounds crammed together like sardines in a pack, so I consider this a big win. We had a good cliffhanger in the end, narratives for each team were impactful and gave more depth to the contestants. They added flashbacks when necessary and focused exactly on what we wanted to see. Overall, I was pretty content with the highlights and pacing of this episode, and I don't know who was fired or hired for this to happen, but keep it going. This is what I want to keep seeing. I know we're like 3 or 2 episodes left, but this is how it should be done. This is how it should have been throughout the entirety of the series. But anyways, let's just get right into the episode itself. Last episode, we had the unfortunate eliminations of some fan favorites, Ruka and Moa, which was expected due to spoilers floating around the internet, but didn't make it hurt any less. I had a lot of thoughts about it and wanted to say so much about how the show is structured, how they were very talented, and they gave very consistent performances, but I feel like it doesn't fit this video a lot, also because there's so much stuff to address from this episode, but I didn't want their elimination to just be erased, because as the show goes on, we tend to forget whoever was in the show in first place. I really like them, so I was very sad with their elimination, but not as much as I will be in the next elimination apparently. But anyways, for this round, the girls would choose their teams based on the rooms they went into. There were 3 rooms they could choose from. Green, which had a picture of 21, purple, which was assigned to Oh My Girl, and the red room, which as a clue had a picture of Red Velvet. If a team was complete, the higher ranked trainee that went inside would kick someone who was in that team out. As any show, there was a little bit of tension while having to kick other trainees out, especially since they could choose who to boot instead of just the lowest in rank being booted out. And that is kind of cruel, but they made it seem very natural and no one was evil edited because of it, so I was glad. Although it's not my favorite way to choose teams because I feel it's a little bit sad. I think it's typical for a show like this. And then we had our first performance, which was I Don't Care by 21. And here we got to understand how the parts were distributed throughout the group and who would they choose as a leader and how they would do that for all of the other groups, and so forth and so on. So basically what happened was that each girl would divide the parts among the group. So they had 5 parts, part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. And they would assign a girl from the team to each of those parts. And each of the girls would present their arguments on why each girl should be doing the parts that they said. And in the end, the girls would vote for one panel. And the girl who won would be the leader and be able to assign parts and so on. Which I think is like so overcomplicating the division of parts. But I guess it's a fun, interactive way of doing it. And that way you have kind of a democracy going on. But I didn't really get it why they did it, because afterwards you could also change your parts like we saw in the purple team later on. So that was a bit confusing. The main issue this group had that was showcased in this episode was Hyewon and her lack of verses and just really high-pitched small parts. She was very insecure about having few lines, especially since last time she had gotten very small parts as well. And honestly, I didn't even remember her or her performance. She got the short end of the stick there. Also, her lines to sing here were very high-pitched and she wasn't so confident in it. And then the editor showed her Dollar Dollar performance where she sang in a very high key. And I remembered how I absolutely hated and disliked her voice tone in there, which I had completely forgotten after her performances of Money and Fearless. Anyways, she was struggling. I didn't really like the way the other girls reacted to it. They seemed very condescending, as it is what it is. And honestly, if I was there and I had a huge part and someone was having a small part, I would probably also react that way and be just like, someone has to do the small part. And it is true that some people get big parts and others don't. That is part of the industry and the game. But the way they treated the subject just felt mean and wrong because Hyewon expressed how she was worried, and it seemed that instead of bringing her up and giving her a little bit of confidence or saying, no, you will stand out because of this and that, they just kind of brushed it over and was like, yeah, someone needs to do it, you know? So I feel like there was a lack of sympathy in the group. And obviously, if Hyewon was extraordinary and amazingly good, they could have redistributed the parts just like they did in Oh My Girl. So Chanelle in the end got a part that wasn't one that was divided by the producers. When they give the sheet and they're like, okay, part 1 is this, part 2 is this, part 3 sings this, they could change it up a bit because we saw them changing it up afterwards. So I feel like they didn't because her tone didn't really suit the song or whatever. But I also feel like they could have talked to her in a way that would make her more comfortable and at ease, because in the end of the day, if you're in a group and there's this one person who's just bringing the energy down, seeming very unconfident, that is going to portray in the performance, and you're here to win as a group. So I don't see why they wouldn't have a conversation with her or try to help her out and just push it over. And I don't know if it's only part of the editing, the way they said stuff in the confessionals. I didn't really appreciate that. So that wasn't my favorite thing. I get it why she got the small part. Honestly, in the end, in the performance, she really didn't suit her. The voice, the lines, she was very unstable. But I feel like they could have handled the situation better. This group also had some struggles memorizing the lyrics for the interim check, and they were all high-ranked trainees. So we had Jimin there, we had Jihyun, we had Minju. They're all very high-ranked trainees, and during the interim check, they barely memorized any lyrics, and the performance itself was more focused on the vocals than in choreography. But they didn't have much prepared in terms of vocals. They were all over the place. The judges were very harsh, but I feel like this was the only episode I actually agreed with them. I mean, if you're gonna sing on the wrong timings, if you're gonna do a very mid job, why are you even here? I don't know if that criticism made them stick together or focus more, but during the performance itself, they were a lot more in their element than in the interim check. But I still felt like they weren't giving their all, mostly because we all know what they're capable of, and there seemed to be a rip in the tide. So it wasn't that enjoyable as a performance itself. And I feel like a lot of why they didn't seem to be given their all was also mostly due to the song itself and the way the song is. The song isn't very idol oriented. It's not a performance that you should have in a survival show if you're trying to show your charms. There are so many other 21 songs that I think would have done the job better than this one, and it was just too calm, almost boring, flat, that the girls didn't have much to work with. So I do think a big part of why the audience or the judges or I was feeling that way was due to the song choice. Very poor song choice. So as much as the girls did a decent job, it wasn't really for me, the performance. I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't enjoying it. And I did think that the performances would elevate from now because we had many good performances before. We had the boys, we had Bad Boy, obviously we had Tell Me, which were all really, really good. And as you go eliminating the lower ranked trainees, the performances should go up. But this one really didn't feel like it was worth it of those high ranked trainees, of the talents that these girls had. I was not feeling or enjoying this performance at all. Talking individually about each one, Minju, it was her performance. Her vocal tone was insane. It was the highlight of the performance. She did so well. I think her voice tone just fit the vibe very, very nicely, and it was a standout. I think this was the moment that I saw and I was like, damn, Minju, okay, I understand why you're part of the big six. Because until now, she didn't show much of her charms to me. I saw her, she's very consistent with her delivery. She's always very good and she's always on the top side of the performers on her teams. But this performance sold me to her because I could see her charms and she was really just a highlight to me. Youngsa, as always, had really good expressions, but she wasn't anything mesmerizing or incredible as the other performances that she had. Jimin and her dancing skills and just how playful she is with the camera, always a hit for me. I love it. I do think that her vocals sometimes sound a little bit auto-tuned, and I'm not sure I like that. But her presence itself and her dancing skills and just the way she's able to communicate with the audience is extremely, extremely on point, extremely good. And Jihyun, I think she never gave us a bad performance. The whole episode afterwards, she was so key because she got 4th place, but I think she did a fine job. I just think the song itself was so detrimental to their whole entire performance because they didn't have much to work with. It was just flat. Overall, the song was just bad. I think that was the main problem I had with this performance. And honestly, I don't remember much about it. Like, nothing stood out to me a lot. And Hyewon, she was basically invisible. Her notes were not very good. She was not reaching them. I could see that she didn't feel confident. They said this about Jihyun, but I didn't feel like Jihyun was not confident. She was like looking at the camera, giving us her charms. Hyewon was just not in her element, not feeling it. Her notes didn't hit well, and it was just kind of a disastrous performance for her. And I feel really bad because she started on a really high note with Fearless and being the killing part, and then we had Money where she was also the center. So going from that to this is just very, very sad. But it is what it is. The second performance of the night was Oh My Girl's 5th season. And boy, what a ride this one was. There is a lot to unpack here. The girls in this team are mostly on the lower levels or on the lower scale. So the confidence is already not really there. Because as much as they might not show, being on the lower rank, you know that you're worse than your competitors. You know that you're not up to the standards of the judges. And like it or not, if you're in a team full of people who are in the lower ranks, I think it's very, very hard for you to have the mentality to be, okay, we're going to win, or okay, we're going to do a really, really good job. Even though I do think all of the girls in the team are very capable of performing and of singing and of dancing. I mean, if they came this far, it's not that they're untalented, but it does give a jab to the confidence. Plus, the fact that Chanelle seemingly gave up after hearing the song they were given was just a recipe for disaster for her. Because for the other girls, it seemed like an okay experience, difficult, but an okay experience. Whereas Chanelle, this was a very decisive moment in the show for her. I actually teared up during the segment that showed Chanelle's struggles when she was talking in the confessionals and all that, because I completely understood where she was coming from. Looking at it from the technical perspective, indeed, they did not only have the hardest song vocally, but the most complicated one in the fact that the choreography was hard, the harmonizations were hard, the vocals were hard. Everything was really, really complicated and difficult. Added to the fact that you are in a concept that does not suit you, you were kicked out from your original choice. With lower ranked members, have barely a week to master the performance. You have to lead the team. All of that juggling, not being the most well-liked by K-netizens, in a highly competitive environment, not getting enough sleep. I'm not sure how they're eating, if they're eating well, but they're probably also in a diet. And any other personal issues, it is hard to say anyone wouldn't crack under all of that pressure, or that the confidence wouldn't be at least a little bit shaken. Therefore, I completely understand her frustration and just her thinking how unfair it was for them to get this really, really hard song. And from what it seems, they have just basic training. They do not have incredible vocal technique or anything like that. But that doesn't mean that I can completely look past her actions and what she has shown in this episode. I am completely and absolutely sure she was overworked and overstressed. But her having an Iris arc was not it at all. Mostly because of the public's reaction and the consequences that those words could have. To me, her looking at the camera and saying, I don't want to be here, I want to give up, and then immediately starting to practice again didn't seem that serious. It felt more like a way for her to put her frustrations out and keep going. But other people can and will perceive it as a sign to stop voting her, to start disliking her, to change her mind about her. And to be very concerned on her mental health, because it came to a point where you're dealing with stuff by shouting, by quote unquote breaking the fourth wall, because she's kind of talking to us directly, the audience. And if you're a fan of her, would you keep voting for someone who you think their mental health is on the line, or that you think is not so psychologically able to handle all that comes with debuting, all that comes with to keep on going with the show? So that was very hard to watch, because I completely, utterly understand. If I put myself in her shoes, I would have a disastrous time there. But as an audience, I cannot just look past that. And then we saw her trying to change groups with Hyewon, which I do think would have benefited both of them. Hyewon would have shined more in the 5th season, especially because she didn't do a good job in I Don't Care. And maybe that could have saved her from a possible elimination from what we are hearing. And Chanelle would have just been more confident, and Chanelle wouldn't have been as fed up as she was with the show as she seemed to be right now. She also had good discussion with Won Hee. In the beginning, it was kind of funny actually, like they're back and forth, they're bantering. But at a certain point, Chanelle kind of exploded, being like, okay, I'll do it, when she didn't really want to do it because she thought she wasn't capable of doing the high notes. And then in the end, I think Won Hee did it for the balance. I wasn't sure what parts they were talking about, to be honest. I didn't understand what part they were discussing, but it did seem like none of the trainees were actually able to reach the notes on this high part, or to be able to sing the high part. So her concerns were very valid. Just the way she expressed herself and she burst out was not exemplary. I do think that her looking at the cameras in the dorms kind of sounded like she didn't want the cameras to be there and wants a little privacy, and I completely understand that, but you're in a survival show. So as much as you hate the cameras and everything, you would just have to deal with it for the time being, I guess. And even after all that, all of her outbursts, all of the talking with the camera, the wanting to be eliminated, Iris kind of thing, I think really what killed her, both her performance and just everything that was happening, was her trying to be strategical and to show more to the audience, when we as an audience saw that she can rap a little bit in that the rapping battle kind of thing, where she did the Eminem rap god parts. Like, I know she can rap, but if you show me this performance, I wouldn't say she is such an amazing rapper. I feel like she should have focused on the singing. And to me, I think that was the final straw of what killed her image in this. Obviously, everyone is very mad and concerned about her due to her actions, but if she had given a good performance, I think most of these talks could have been at least dimmed down a bit. But it wasn't, because she came to the performance with a very sad face and energy that did not fit the concept. And the performance itself was kind of ruined because of her. And that is just terrible, because she is one of the most passionate and hardworking girls in this show. So saying that hurts me so much. But also for this performance, my comparison was Girls Planet 999, where they also performed the 5th season in the very first mission. And every time I rewatched the Team in White, which had Manami, Bora, I get chills, okay? That was such a good performance. And I know it is very unfair to compare the girls in this show to either Bora or Rayon, who are both the main vocalists of the 5th season performances and of their respective idol group, especially since the girls here don't seem to have that much of a vocal training. And Hybe is not particularly famous for their vocals. But the 5th season in Girls Planet 999 was the first mission. So the ones who were showcased as not so talented or just invisible, they were all there and they made like this amazing performance. They absolutely devoured it. The White team especially. So my expectations in this performance was very high, having that survival show comparison. But first of all, the instrumental, what happened to this remix? Don't touch the song. The instrumental of the 5th season is perfect. And then you come with this remix that just sounds weird and awkward. No, I hated it. That was really bad. I don't think the performance itself has the actual voices of them singing live, because they have some cuts in the very beginning. You can see when his hair is changing positions in between cuts, which means that the audio could also have been not live, because if I'm not seeing the live performance itself with the exact cuts that the judges saw and the girls backstage saw and then the audience saw, so that was very disappointing to see once again, because I do want to see the real performance and not these bunch of cuts. So I'm still very frustrated with that part of the show. But apart from that, I was expecting more vocals, as in more harmonies and hearing more their voices. But I must say, Wonhee did an amazing job as a main vocalist. Even in the practice room where they were deciding who was going to do the high notes and the ad-libs, and Wonhee sang and belted, that was really, really good. And I mean, she fit this concept so well. The innocence, the smiles, everything just fit this concept really, really well. And she proved to us once again that she can actually really sing. And Iroha and her are both going down in popularity, seemingly because they showed the first places in this episode and how the ranking was. And they both went down a couple of spots. But I do think we will be seeing Wonhee in the debut lineup. Seeing that she is improving a lot, she is conquering people with this improvement, and she has many quirky charms. Plus, the hate train gathered her many solo fans and so forth and so on, and now that we have like one voting system, but that is mostly for another video. But Wonhee did a really good job here, and Mocha was absolutely stunning. She sang really, really well. I really liked her voice in this performance. It came off as strong and she looked perfect, like a ballerina. It was just all so good. She fit this concept so well as well. And I am absolutely rooting for her because she's just doing super well now. She has shown us a lot of versatility and her singing voice here is so good. Soyeon as well, she wasn't bad. She did a really nice job. But I do think she falls in the less skilled members of the entire show. So I am not super cheerful for her, but she did a really good job as well. And Himena was just invisible to me, which sucks because her performances until now were all extremely good. So not seeing her this performance at all was quite shocking. I think she did fine, but she didn't really shine. And that was what I thought of the 5th season performance. The song itself is very hard, but I had high expectations for them, which weren't really met. So I do feel like I like this performance more than I Don't Care, but it's still not mind-blowing or anything of sorts, or close to what I wanted to see, which was the Girls Planet thing. And finally, we had Monster, and this group and this performance were just absolutely outstanding. Let's just do a really quick recap on what happened backstage, so we can talk about this amazing performance. So the main narrative and main issue we had here was that Yunah was assigned the leader by voting of the parts and whatever, but she wasn't able to lead as much as she wanted because Jiwoo, who is the oldest one, who had all the teams she was in and so now, naturally took charge of stuff and corrected dance moves, told people what to do, and gave her opinions and just was in charge of the team. So Yunah talked to Junggeun and we saw that she was a little bit frustrated that she wasn't able to lead so well and that she only had the title of leader, but she wasn't actually the one to lead the group. And that she was feeling a little bit sad and frustrated about it. And instead of taking that issue to the whole group and just shaming Jiwoo and telling her to step down and being obnoxious about it, she had the very mature decision to sit down with Jiwoo one-on-one in the locker room, where she was very honest about how she was feeling neglected as a leader, how she thought she wasn't influencing enough or that her ideas weren't being heard enough. And she asked Jiwoo to, step a little bit down. but still thanked her for helping the group. And Jiwoo was like, sorry for my actions. She apologized, and both of them were really friendly and really honest and really mature about it all. And I absolutely loved seeing that. That really, really made me respect Yunah a lot, because the emotional intelligence you must have to be able to talk about it and resolve this in a very short time. I think it was like 1 day. And Jiwoo for listening and actually working out on what Yunah said and what she advised, and letting Yunah take charge of stuff. That was very mature as well, and she wasn't mad about it. She listened, she apologized, and she explained her parts and her views and did as Yunah wanted. And I think that was so nice to see. And they gave a lot of that for both of them. So that was really, really nice. On to the performance itself, they absolutely tore it down. It was amazing. Their performance was mind-blowing. Jiwoo, as always, she is so good. Her voice is so nice. She started off really well. Yunah was also on her element. This is what we love seeing from her. The center material, the debut group. She is just perfect. And she fits the dark concept so well that it was just absolutely amazing. Iroha also proved herself with her voice this time. I could hear her singing. Was it probably edited? I don't know, probably. But it was good. Like, I could hear her, and it didn't seem extremely auto-tuned to the point that made me like cringe. So she also did a fine job, and she danced like always very, very nicely. This kind of sold me to her, because I wasn't really liking her performances that much. I didn't think she brought a lot to the table. But this performance in a specific, even though she didn't have that many lines, I think she did a really good job. And I understand the hype now. Do I want her to debut? Not really, but I understand the hype, okay? I understand it. Jungin did an amazing job. Her red pants, she was fire. And Funa, I think Funa did so well. So well. She caught my attention all the time, and she was able to sing over the very loud backtrack and the very light like instrumentals. So that was super impressive. Her expressions were there. Her voice was there. She was the only one who I could hear, I could hear her so freaking well. And it was just amazing. And I absolutely love her. And if she is actually eliminated next round, I'm just gonna cry, because she did such a good job. She had a few lines. I think she had the least lines in this performance, but she shined like she had many, many lines, especially with her ad-libs and the final part where she was singing, which even the judges mentioned that she was able to sing and overpower the track, and that was so nice. The only thing I disliked was that the track was really, really loud, so I couldn't hear the voices so well. But I still need to check out the fan cams and all that to see how I can hear them there. But on the performance itself, especially in the beginning, it was a little bit hard to hear the girls singing. But absolutely insane performance by them. Very nice group of girls, very talented. Jiwoo, as always, oh my gosh, I love her. Jiwoo, Yunah, and Funa here were mind-blowing to me. Then the judges, this episode, I was agreeing with the judges a lot. But then they cut out any compliments they gave to Jiwoo. And I don't know if this is a tactic of the editors and the show. So we root for Jiwoo as the underdog, as the one who was like mistreated by the judges and not seen. Like, I hope that's the reason, and not because they don't want her to debut, so they don't show the compliments that the judges give her, so we don't think that she does such a good job. Because it's blasphemous almost how they gave every single girl a compliment, but not Jiwoo. I was very, very sad about that. Especially because she was the one who was highlighted the most in the performance. Like, she was the one who shined the most, who carried the performance. And then to not see anything is very, very weird. So I was mad about that. So I am really hoping that it's for everyone to be mad, because we could all see that she was amazing. And since everyone is mad, they're going to vote for her because the judges did not want her in. So kind of like a reverse psychology thing. I really, really hope it's that, and not because they do not want to show her as a good contestant. But anyways, that was it for the performances in the episodes. Next week, we will have Black Team, which are only 3 contestants. I think 1 from each group. But my top 6 right now would be Jiwoo, Yunah, Funa, Youngsa, Mocha, and Jihyun, or Jimin, as the 6th member. Have a great week, great life, great August, summer, or winter, depending on where you are. But yay! Bye!